Watch this.
As Idaho's Texas-style abortion bill is waiting for Governor Little's signature, we're hearing about one woman's experience with abortion and why she chose that path. A path that, if taken away from other women in Idaho, Oregon is hoping to leave open. They couldn't put a stop to the pandemic, but lawmakers are hoping to put a pause on COVID vaccines, asking for a full-year hold on mandates. All across the country, gas prices seem to be slowly trickling back down, but not here in Idaho. What is up with that?
Higher education should be our goal. Excellence in higher education should be achievable. But what we're getting is a creep towards higher indoctrination.
1 year after leading the charge to chop the higher education budgets by $2.5 million, Representative Ron Nate from Rexburg was at it again on the House floor today. This was 2 weeks after Representative Nate tried to cut another $1.3 million from U of I, ISU, and BSU's budget this session in the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. That didn't happen, but that didn't stop Representative Nate from trying once again to derail the funding of Idaho's four public universities. Again, it didn't work. To cut to the chase, this year's budget, $338 million, a $25 million increase over last year's budget, which is probably one of the largest single-year increases in state history. It passed the House 46-22. Now back to the chase. JFAC co-chair Representative Paul Amador from Coeur d'Alene, anticipating pushback from certain members of the House, he threw up a little preemptive budget rampart with regards to these social justice indoctrination questions of our four-year institutions.
I can report to you that multiple institutions conducted independent investigations looking into indoctrination on the campuses. There was also a state board survey that was sent out to all students in the state that are attending our higher education institutions, asking about their experiences in the climate and if they felt like they were intimidated on campus. And overwhelmingly, those results came back that students felt safe and respected and valued for their opinions on campus.
And Amador said he felt pretty good about Idaho's universities abiding by the guidelines put in place by last year's House Bill 377. That was the bill outlawing teaching or promotion of the tenets of critical race theory. That they were teaching students how to think and not what to think is how Representative Amador put it today. Representative Nate and a few others weren't buying it, though.
They spent money to get a law firm to give them the answers they want that this doesn't exist on campuses. It took me about 5 minutes on the internet to figure out this existing at the university that hired those attorneys.
My comments are based on our continuing funding of an institution, or institutions, I should say, which insist on peddling an ideology repugnant to the American traditional values.
So 5 minutes on the internet, well, okay. Representative Barbieri has evidence of schools thumbing their noses at the legislature and their control of the purse strings. He then went on to read from a supposed selection of Boise State job posting requirements.
Boise State, a clinical assistant professor of civil engineering must have one-page statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Assistant professor of cell, molecular, and development biology has to have evidence of a commitment to create a diverse and inclusive work environment, a description of how the candidate research programs and teaching philosophy would address BSU's diversity and inclusion goals.
I'm reading that information, which he obviously read from an email from an outfit that we know who it is. I was going to ask the good gentleman if he's actually attended any of these classes to know if any of that information that he just quoted was factual.
An outfit, we know who it is. You can see our four-part series on the Idaho Freedom Foundation to get to know who that is. But Barbieri didn't want to answer that question or pretty much any question from any other member of the House. However, Representative Megan Blanksma used that question from Representative Youngblood to point out the presidents of Idaho's four public universities had co-signed a letter to the legislators, reaffirming their commitment to follow the rules and guidelines set forth by the legislature last year. Again, see House Bill 377, now the amended State Code 33138. There was another thing the four presidents put in that letter.
We can say a lot of things, I think the best way that we understand what's going on at the universities is to visit the universities. And you'll notice in this letter, they give you that opportunity. If you really want to see whether critical race theory or whatever issue is being taught at your universities, they've given you an invitation to walk in the door. They've given you an opportunity to go take a look for yourself, and I would say that's the best thing you can do.
Like better than 5 minutes on the internet, right? Well, the House did the best thing it could do when it comes to funding higher education in Idaho by sending the budget over to the Senate 46-22.
This will end many abortions in Idaho, so I appreciate that testimony. Let's save some babies. Thank you.
Of course, that's been the idea behind a slew of abortion bills that have passed the Idaho legislature the last few sessions. The latest, Senate Bill 1309, is waiting for Governor Little's signature. It's based on what they did in Texas, not only making abortions illegal after 6 weeks, but it would allow family members on both sides to sue the doctor who performed the abortion. A bill like this, had it been around before, would have changed the lives of so many women who made the difficult decision to get an abortion, believing it was in their best interest. One of them spoke with Katya Stepovic.
Abortion is not a constitutional right. This is something that we've created, and that the Supreme Court in 1973 did something that was never allowed in the first place.
Life begins at conception, and life deserves legal protection at all stages. And so we are saying that right now, with this law, we're going to protect babies with beating hearts.
But abortion was something that Alexa chose 23 years ago.
I was really young. I was with a partner for 3 years. It wasn't secretive. We were really okay with it, and we definitely took the time to think about it as well. So I think a lot of times people believe that, it's just like on a whim, but, it is something that you think about as a human being, and it's not just something that you take for something lightly.
She found out she was pregnant around 6 weeks.
Back then, I was a waitress, and I was living in a house with 3 other women who were also all waitresses. At the time, I just dropped out of college. I was setting out on my own. I really was trying to get an understanding of who I was, not, being separate from a family that I had, from my parents for 18 years.
If you didn't have that choice and you had to go through that birth, where would you be now, and what kind of life would you or wouldn't you be able to give that baby?
It would have not given me the chance to experience things in life that are here where I am today. And where I am today is really amazing. I'm graduating college. I'm getting married to the love of my life. There's still a future for the possibility of having a child. And what about the life that I needed to live in the last 10 years to make me the person I am and feel more confident as a partner, somebody who is going to get married, as a daughter, and as a mother, as a possible mother.
Days after the bill was sent to the governor's desk, a bill in Oregon was passed that would establish an Oregon Reproductive Equity Fund of $15 million to help fund abortions and related travel expenses. The funds would be administered by a nonprofit called Seeding Justice. The organization yesterday saying the funds will help advocates prepare for Idaho's imminent passage of a 6-week abortion ban, a potential ban to a choice that changed Alexa's life.
Is this something that you ever regretted?
I never regretted it. I've thought about it. I think about it a lot, but I also, kind of going back to where I am today, I have a lot to thank for that. I'm really grateful for that opportunity to make that choice for myself.
A choice that some lawmakers believe after 6 weeks should not be granted.
Within about 22 days from conception, there is already a heart beating. And when abortion is performed, a heart that once was beating is forever stopped and a life is ended. Although our desire is to see abortions completely outlawed in Idaho, enacting SB 1309 would be a huge step in the right direction.
But for Alexa, it would be a step in the wrong direction.
I don't trespass. So why would we trespass on people's bodies as well? So there's like a lot of similarities of things that Idahoans feel really strong about. You know, my property, my gun rights. This is the same. Like, this is my body, and I have the right to make that choice, the way you have the right to tell me to get off your property.
It's quite the honest conversation you had with Alexa. And, you know, we were talking, this bill doesn't even take into account abusive relationships. There's a lot it doesn't take into account. But what happens next with this thing?
Well, right now, as we mentioned, it is on Governor Little's desk waiting for approval. He can either sign it or veto it. He has until Friday to do that. If he doesn't take any action, it automatically gets signed into law. And there is an emergency clause in the bill that makes it go into effect 30 days after that signature.
Wow, right
so
away.
Fast acting.
All right, thank you very much, Katya. Debating about what one can be required to do with one's own body dictated by another is nothing new to the Idaho legislature, but the discussions took a few turns during the COVID pandemic. Prior to 2020, the word COVID never appeared in Idaho laws, even in Idaho, obviously, but now that word is in proposed legislation on a daily basis. The Idaho Senate took up a big topic: discrimination based on COVID vaccine status. The question: can the government or a private business regulate vaccine status of their employees? Lawmakers say they are trying to balance the rights of businesses and the liberties of individuals. Well, Joe Paris takes us to the Idaho Senate in their debate of the Coronavirus Pause Act.
The Idaho Senate took up the Coronavirus Pause Act to debate COVID vaccine requirements. Senate Bill 1381 proposes a one-year ban on businesses from requiring the COVID vaccine as a condition for employment. There are exceptions, though, for things like employees in a medical setting, but the bill threatens financial criminal penalties for businesses who don't comply.
In all the time that I've served in this body, I don't think I've ever worked harder on a piece of legislation.
That's a big note from bill sponsor, Senate Pro Tem Senator Chuck Winder. Winder says he crafted the legislation carefully to give exceptions for things like specific businesses that could risk losing Medicare and Medicaid funding, existing federal laws, and contracts that employers have already signed.
I like to use the expression thread the needle on protecting the rights of the employee while trying to safeguard the rights of the employer.
Critics say the bill is government overreach and penalizes Idaho businesses already struggling.
I can't in good conscience criminalize employers in an already difficult economic time. I vote no.
Senator Stinnett votes nay.
In short, the private sector businesses have been through enough in the past and have enough to worry about in the future without this mandate. As I've already indicated, if confined to the government, I'm all in. I was opposed to President Biden's mandate and would support 1381 if kept government specific.
Supporters of the legislation argue that the bill is necessary to protect Idahoans from discrimination.
Requiring someone to receive a coronavirus vaccination is a very personal and a very permanent decision. And it's not something that someone should be discriminated against because they did or did not receive that vaccination. And this is also a relatively new medical development. It's not a decision because of that should be forced on someone to maintain their employment.
I see this bill as an American bill to give everybody a fair chance, and that it is anti-discrimination, pure and simple. Thank you.
Critics of the bill, like Boise Democrat Senator Melissa Wintrow, raise questions about the bill and how the legislature handles discrimination issues.
To criminalize business is a really horrific thing to do. And my heart is kind of heavy on this bill, as I have said before, because we talk about the word discrimination when it comes to a status, with a vaccine to stop the spread of a disease, and we are still resisting adding words sexual orientation and gender identity to our Human Rights Act, which is true discrimination. Senator votes nay.
After debate in the Senate, the bill passed 24-11 along mostly party lines. Senator Winder says he believes the bill balances the values of business and the rights of an individual in Idaho.
We tried to recognize that there are legitimate business interests that need to be protected, but there are also legitimate personal interests that need to be protected.
All right, Joe. First, the COVID vaccine is a permanent decision. I think there's a few boosters out there might have something to say about that. But does this only apply to the COVID vaccine?
Yes, to be crystal clear here, the legislation, when you read it, it is specifically defined that this is only about the COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccine for anything else is not a part of this legislation. So again, as Brian mentioned a few minutes ago, this is a tailored bill specifically for COVID, something we would have never seen a few years ago, but it very specifically handles what is a COVID-19 vaccine. And you may be wondering, this one-year ban, when does it start, when does it end? Well, the way the legislation was written is that it would be a one-year ban from the day that the governor got rid of the state of an emergency. And the Governor Little has announced that he's going to do that coming up in April. So 1 year from this April, Brian, that would expire. If it got re-upped, to be a whole other conversation, but it'd be interesting to see where it goes from there.
And what other virus comes down the pike as well. Maybe they'll have to craft a whole new law just for that too. All right, thanks, Joe. Also on the House floor yesterday, lawmakers unanimously passing Senate Bill 1290. That's the bill that would require homes built before 1968 to add a piece of paper to that deed saying any racial covenants are null and void or unenforceable, which they kind of already were. Those covenants were made illegal with the passage of the Fair Housing Act. They still appear in the deeds in some homes, though, because deeds stay with the property. That's how it works. And as we heard in committee hearings, those covenants can be found in many deeds in many homes across the state. It passed unanimously in the Senate a few weeks ago, which means it is up for the governor to sign it. To date, this session, Governor Little has signed 32 pieces of 32 bills, I should say, into law so far. Ah, the pain at the pump. We've all been feeling it and, of course, hearing about it. So we took your questions to an expert. There's some good news waiting at the end of this tunnel. You have any more questions for us? Well, we make it really easy to get in contact with us. Just text the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. You can send us your questions, or you can send us your comments and whatever else you want to talk about on the 208. Just make sure you include your name and the hashtag, the 208. All right, over the last 3 weeks, we've all seen the prices of the pump just keep going up. The main reason that we were told Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is believable. Yes, the U.S., which is the largest producer of oil in the world, receives about 8% of its gas from Russia. So when President Biden announced that the U.S. would stop buying oil from Russia, the price skyrocketed overnight. Did not take long. The cost for a barrel of crude oil hit a record high of $1.26, as you can kind of see on that chart there. Average cost for a gallon of unleaded gas on February 26th, Boise, about $3.57 a gallon. Today, it's about $4.45 a gallon, an 88-cent increase in less than 3 weeks. Today, the cost for a barrel of crude oil back down to $96 a barrel. But the prices you're paying at the pump, yeah, still not coming down. Across the country, gas prices have started to go down slightly, not yet here in Idaho. We're always a little bit behind the curve, always behind the national average, though. Since then, we've been asked by many of the viewers about this cost of gas, inundated with messages. Like over the weekend, Rick sent us this email Why have gas prices risen before the new supply chain has even hit the pumps or even the processing plants? Like, I know you got $2 gas in there. I want to buy that. And then this text from Gary. Why is it when a barrel of oil goes up for the price of gas, or the price of gas goes up immediately? When oil goes down, it doesn't go down at the same rate. That's something we've all noticed, Gary. Even President Biden tweeting today, asking the very same question. So we took some of those questions to Boise State professor of economics, Guido Guttini.
I can understand why your viewers would have those questions. Usually prices are more mobile upward than downward. So we say they're sticky downward. A lot of the producers, the sellers, they actually do something that they base their price on of the price they expect to pay next when they have to buy the new shipment. But this happens more upwards than downwards. It's pretty obvious that they didn't go down as the price of oil went down again in the last few days. The price of gas stayed up. It's easier to raise them. Once you're raised, people get used to higher prices, and it takes long. They can take advantage of the fact that people are used to that. And so lowering the price, you don't do it as fast because you still sell it and you make more profit. That's one we economists would call a bit of a market imperfection.
Yeah, taking advantage of the consumer, right? But ultimately, it is all about supply and demand. If you stop demanding the gas, well, they're going to have to lower the prices. Okay, so what about price gouging? Well, he says basically if the market price goes up, that's the way it is. Good news, though, prices nationally, again, as we mentioned, starting to go back down. Idaho will get there eventually, just eventually. Expect some relief soon. All right, lots of comments sent in about the abortion bill that is waiting the governor's signature at the State House, like this one. So the woman who got an abortion thinks because she fooled around and got pregnant, she has the right to take a life. She's very confused, says confused. She didn't exactly fool around. She was in a relationship for 3 years, by the way, so that's not really the same thing. Also, this year, the Idaho legislature killed a contraceptive bill, by the way. So that also went away. So that kind of eliminated that element of it. A person has a right to decide what to inject in their body, but a woman doesn't have a right to decide what to do with her body. The hypocrisy is mind-boggling, says Jules. We got a lot of these sent in today. Just so I'm understanding, my body, my choice on masks, but not abortion. We are pro-business unless they want to require a vaccine for employees. We want to protect the individual rights unless you are trans. Time to admit the hypocrisy, says Marshall. So with the new anti-abortion bill, would the affected population be able to count the unborn fetus as a dependent on their taxes for the first 9 months or so, or at least after those 6 weeks, right? Or is it not considered a human until birth, asked Tim. That's a good question for a CPA. They probably have that answer for you, though. Likely not. College students are adults. As such, they can make decisions about classes, lifestyles, etc. The legislature is treating college students like preschoolers. We'll see you back here tomorrow.